Hi, and welcome to the Simply Coaching Summit session about EdTech coaching from a distance. I am Catherine Goyette, and I'm here with
Adam Waters.
And we are so excited to speak with you about coaching. This is definitely a passion of ours. And you can access this presentation using that bit.ly in your address bar on the bottom left. But we'll also have downloads at the end as well, and you can link to that also. So we'll introduce ourselves briefly. My name is Catherine Goyette. I'm currently an educational technology and integrated studies consultant. My fifth year at a county office, serving just over 200 schools in our county. And I do a lot of in-class coaching, professional learning sessions, etc. And of course, my emphasis is EdTech. Prior to that, I was a coach at a K-5 school.
And my name is Adam Waters, and I am a EdTech integration coach for grade 6-12 for Cutler-Orosi Joint Unified School District out here in rural Central California. This is now my 16th year in education, all in the same district. And the first 9 years, though, I was a U.S. and world history teacher at middle school and high school. You have all my contact information here, my email address, my website. Subscribe to my blog, and probably the easiest and best way to get a hold of me is through social media on Twitter and Instagram at TechCoachWhatIs.
And we like to say, Adam, that when you have a session with us, you have tech support or support in general for life.
That's
so
right.
Please feel free to reach out at any time, whether it's today, in a week, in a month, or in a year, with any questions that you want to ask for us.
Yeah, we hold ourselves to responding within 24 hours. So give us a shout.
All right. So we really believe that when we are at a distance and when we are also in a physical environment, we really want to make sure that we don't force our coaching on anyone. And so as we speak about in our newly published book, that's really just about our experiences and things we've learned, we talk about technology integration and really any coaching. To be organic, it really needs to emerge naturally. So what is an organic model, Adam? What do we mean?
So an organic model, we like to say it's cage-free. We really like saying that. I think that word cage-free really goes well with the idea of organic, because cage-free, when you have those cage-free chickens, there's no steroids, there's no additives. They're not in a cage locked up in just like a science experiment. They're allowed to be real chickens. And so I think that's a great way. So when we say cage-free, we mean, well, as we'll talk about in more detail later, you got to get out of your office, got to get away from your desk. You have to get out there and see the learning in its natural habitat.
And we'll talk about what that looks like from a distance as well.
That's right. Organic model means that as a coach, I'm going to personalize my coaching for you. There's no one-size-fit-all approach. It is inclusive for all. We're not just coaching the innovators. We're coaching those hesitant teachers as well. We're coaching, we're working with IT directors. We're working with office staff, with parents, with classified staff, where we are coaching everybody. And we like to say that the learners are more important than the tech. You know, what are the learners, what are the students producing, what are our goals for them? And from there, once we know that, then we recommend tech. It's never the other way around.
All right, well, let's talk about some strategies of how this can work, Adam. So we talked about being cage-free. And so what we both discovered in our roles as coaches was that coaching can be a lonely job. And so what we found was it was more rewarding and better for our health to actually be out and about, walking the campus, to be cage-free, office-free, so to speak. But now, in the time of distance learning, we can't physically walk amongst the campus with those we serve any longer.
That's right. So how are we getting out there and seeing teaching and learning in their natural habitat? Well, we're using, we have to use technology tools. We're using Zoom. We're using Google Meet to drop in on classes being taught virtually. We're dropping on virtual PLCs, whereas in the past we set a goal for ourselves. It's not always attainable, but it's a lofty goal. And when we attain it, we feel really good about ourselves. Is to be 80% of our days in classrooms. So if you can, it doesn't always happen, but when it does, you've really met your coaching goal. But instead of being boots on the ground, walking the halls, visiting classrooms, we have to do it through Zoom and Meet. And it's funny how we're talking about this today. I actually wrote a blog post about today, just about being healthier and how I'm not out there anymore in classrooms anymore.
Mm.
I'm in front of my computer screen more often than not, and how there's the dangers of sitting. So I found I talk about the blog post about a website called JustStand.org that kind of highlights how many more calories you burn just by standing. So if you can't be out there boots on the ground in classrooms, if you have to be on Zoom, if you can somehow create some kind of a standing desk for yourself, that's one way to kind of take care of your own health while you are implementing and doing your best to do an organic model at a distance.
This can be difficult with hesitant teachers. They might not feel comfortable having you go into their video classrooms. So with this particular model with distance learning, we like to volunteer ourselves into classrooms with teachers we have a good rapport with, that are very interested first, and then allow the word to spread. So we also want to make sure that our coaching is personalized and that it's based on the context of each and every individual we serve. We want to validate, and that's going to actually foster that sustainability. We want intrinsic motivation. We do not want a top-down approach, one size fits all. So what does it look like to have personalized learning from a distance? We have to make sure that we are available for each and every educator, and they're not all the same.
That's right. There's no, as we said, we're going to sound like a broken record. There is no magic bullet. There's no one size fits all. Just like a snowflake or a fingerprint, every educator is unique. No two are the same. So how do you personalize learning at a distance? So our coaching has definitely evolved during distance learning. And because I'm not out there face to face with people and able to physically interact with them, my coaching obviously has changed. So one way, obviously, that we're all probably relying on more than ever is email. That's definitely really, if you've no matter what email service you're using, you probably notice some bugs and some glitchiness with whatever service you're using. I know we use Gmail, and there's definitely it's not used to so much traffic, because it's our main mode of communication. I mean, so obviously my coaching has really shifted to a lot of email. But what I've noticed is I get a lot of requests, and questions, and that I know that if one teacher's asking it, I know there's going to be more teachers who are interested in whatever is being asked of me. So I need to kind of multiply myself. So how do I do it? I reply with two ways, either with a screencast or with a blog. So the blog shows a lot of screenshots and explanations of different tasks and strategies and apps and ideas. We're accompanied with it's written out. Some teachers like that. Others need to actually hear me and model it. So that's when I reply with a screencast. So more than ever, I actually got just the other day an email from I believe it was from Screencastify itself, giving me an award for all the screencasts that I've done this year, because I reply to so many teachers' requests and questions with those screencasts.
But you have to let them know that you would like them to email you. I like to tell teachers, you're not bothering me by emailing me. In fact, you're helping me, because what happens is if I don't get your email, many other teachers may have the same question. They're frustrated. And then, if I get that email and I'm able to write that blog or that screencast, I can help multiple people at one time. So they like that when they feel like they're actually helping me in my role rather than bothering me, so to speak.
And think of it like those help forums that you end up finding answers on whether you're with Google or with some other company that you do a search where you click on where it says help. And you have all these people who've asked questions before, and their questions have gotten numerous answers, and they're helping you now solve your problem. You're doing that now as an EdTech coach. And you know what? You have to be available on multiple platforms. And that can't just be through email. We have the image there of a cell phone. You know, if you feel comfortable giving out your cell phone number to the people that you serve, that's another way. So I have a small group of teachers that will only text me, some who only email, some who will direct message me on Google Chat, some who will call my direct phone line in the room.
I will get questions via Facebook Messenger
Yes, I get some
and
of those.
Twitter DM. And that's okay because that's where they're at. We have to personalize it by being where they're at. The other thing that really helps us to personalize learning is join whatever LMS you're using. If it's Google Classroom, if it's Canvas, whatever it happens to be, if you join their classroom, you can better help them in what their assignments are, how to troubleshoot, etc., as they go through that.
And that idea of joining, a Google Classroom or any kind of a digital classroom platform was born out of something that we did pre-COVID. We talk about how if when the kids see will see your name as a co-teacher there, and if you have questions, I can go in on the back end and support you that way. And that has really been a great strategy in distance learning, to the point where I worked with our admin. I created a whole separate email account that's the school's admin classroom account, and our administration has always wanted to actually. They used to walk classrooms, but they can't do it anymore. So now our administrators are sharing this one Google account that everybody has has invited as a co-teacher. So the admin and coaches were able to drop in on anyone's classroom and provide feedback and support. But you really have to message it early on to the teachers. This is not evaluative. This is for feedback and support. We're here to support you and help you in any way they can. And a lot of times, as you used to say, Catherine, when the kids see that the principal or a coach is also as a co-teacher, sometimes they tend to behave a little bit better.
Not only that, they're excited to share what they've learned.
That's right.
So we also want to make sure that we are not focusing on teacher weaknesses. We really want to start with their strengths. We want to start with their interests and build our pedagogy from there. And so this is something that we're really passionate about as well. And so really in that, making sure that we have a strengths-based approach, I really have found great success in asking teachers when they come into to my office hours or they come to a professional learning session, asking them what has worked well. There's a lot that's challenging right now. There's a lot of things that teachers feel are not working well. And if we start with something that has worked well, it really shifts the conversation to be more positive to begin. And it also validates that teacher. That teacher feels like I am doing something well. If they can't think of something that's working well, then I will provide something. Hey, do you have more people come into your class, more kids now than you did last week? Great. Trying to think of something like that. And then next, not what do you want to learn, open-ended, not we're all going to learn this, but what challenges do you face? Your job as a coach is to help teachers overcome their challenges. You are coaching them through this process. Similarly, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach even to apps and platforms. You want to talk about that, Adam?
Yeah, it all depends on what you're teaching and what grade level you're teaching. If you're working with younger kids, you're probably going to be using Seesaw. When you work with older kids, you shift over to things like Schoology, Canvas, Google Classroom. There's a variety of, or even Microsoft Teams. So there's tons of different apps and strategies that you have to the best of your ability, like we like to say, be app and strategy agnostic. You need to know a little bit about everything. But as we talk about in the book, you can't know everything. It's just not possible. And that's why you have to really do your best to rely on your PLN, your personal learning network. And if you're here at this conference, then you're definitely in that mold. So when we talk about, when we lead with questions like, what has worked well? What challenges do you face? When we ask those questions, we don't come across as an expert. And that's something we definitely want teachers to look at. That's a light in which we want teachers to see us. Because as instructional coaches, EdTech coaches, any kind of coach, a lot of times they meet us with hesitation, like, "Oh, you're the expert. You think you know it all," but we want to change that dynamic. We want to know that we want to really kind of empathize with them, that we're in this with you. We don't know everything. We have a lot of experience and ideas, but we don't know it all, and we want to be learning partners with you. We want to be like, I like to say now, I'm a professional thought partner. And in that way, I can really kind of deviate from a one size fits all and make it as personal as possible.
Yeah, and also just to point out, in the last quote we talked about pedagogical practices as well, and so also to point out that personalizing this learning is not only not we're personalizing whatever platform they happen to be using, but these questions are about the learning itself. These are about the academic learning. So when we say what has worked well, they might talk about some logistics or something like that. They might even ask us about some tech logistics when they're talking about challenges. But the way that we really work with those hesitant teachers, when we talked about finding their strengths, find out what they're passionate about. So we actually say we lead with learning, never with tech. Tech is the how. It is not the what. It is the how. And so what we do is we ask teachers. So for example, Adam, if you are a teacher that, if I'm a teacher that you're working with, can you model how we would ask some questions to get the teacher going?
Yeah, so if I don't know you at all, if I'm brand new to your school, I'm going to start off by asking you, how long have you been here? How many years have you been teaching? And that right there is going to give me an idea of where I could start. So I've done this in the past before with teachers who are veteran teachers. Being a history teachers traditionally like to lecture, especially the veteran ones. And I remember one time coaching a veteran history teacher, and I knew early on that he was a great storyteller. He was a very old school lecturer. So I said, all right, so I'm going to kind of, and because I know he's got a lot of stories to tell, I'm going to leverage that. So I kind of ushered him towards screencasting apps where he can record himself and really allow the kids to put that pause button on him. But if I don't know that he is a great lecturer, a good storyteller, I may have taken a totally different approach.
Well, and what you mentioned as well is you said very early on he was a history teacher. Mm-hmm. And so we really want to make sure that we ask teachers, what is your learning goal? Mm-hmm. And when we talk about those pedagogical practices, we lead with something called the 4 C's.
That's right.
Right. So we want to make sure that, again, the tech is the how that engages kids in the 4 C's, and that the learning goal is first and foremost, which they all have different learning goals depending on their department.
That's right.
So we also want to be sure that teachers know that we are not serving initiatives. We are not the Google, Microsoft gurus that are trying to force everyone into this platform. It may be that that's a district mandate, but we don't serve the mandate. We serve learners. We are there to support them, to help them overcome challenges. And so it's very important that we send the message that we are there for those teachers, not for specific initiatives.
Now, we're not here to demonize initiatives. So you have a lot of schools that say that we are a PBL school, we are an AVID school, things like that that are all great. It reminds me of an old TV commercial from back in the 80s, early 90s. There's a company called BASF. They said, BASF does not make a lot of the products you buy. We make a lot of the products you buy better. So I think as EdTech coaches, we're there to see what they're into and do as much as we can to enhance whatever that initiative is. We're not beholden to that initiative, but we're going to do our best to try to improve it in any way that we can.
Absolutely. So how do we do this from a distance? And so it can be difficult to serve learners and not initiatives. We can't walk into their classrooms when they're, a little bit, that's a little bit difficult there. So we like to give them choices within what it is that our district is asking for them to use. So again, but we're serving the learners. We want to empower them by giving them choice, giving them voice, giving them choice based on that learning goal.
And one of our things we talk about in the book, we talk about that as an EdTech coach, you have to be able to, before you can give them all this voice and choice, you got to feed yourself before you feed your team. So if you've ever been on an airplane, anyone who's ever been on a plane knows that the first thing before it ever takes off on every flight, the flight attendants will model how to use the oxygen in case of an emergency. And one thing they always say is this: please put on yours before trying to help someone else. Because if you don't get yours on and you pass out, then there's two people who've passed out and you're not able to help anybody. So I like that metaphor because you need to really rely on your PLN and be as device and strategy and app agnostic as possible. Really fill that toolbox as much as you can. We talk about the importance in the book of certifications. There's so many certifications for so many different apps and strategies out there, and we definitely encourage you to get as many as you can. If you saw our introduction slides where we introduce ourselves, you saw many of ours. We collect them like badges. Well, they are badges, but we collect them in a similar manner as the Boys and Girl Scouts, and you wear them as a badge of honor. And and once you get one, it's like, what's next? What's next? I just got one a few weeks ago about quizzes, something that I love to do, and I'm looking at other ones as well. And as I really improve my competency in all these different apps, I can provide more voice and choice. Those choice boards that I make, I can offer a lot more options than as I really continue to learn on my own.
Now, it's super important, agreed, that as EdTech coaches, we're device and platform agnostic, that we're learning all the time. But with teachers that are hesitant, if we give them a great amount of choices and say, choose one, they might not know what to choose. And so with that, it's also helpful to have those relationships, to ask those questions. So Adam, if you were coaching me and you asked, what is it that you're teaching? And I said, well, I'm teaching English language arts and we're working on theme. And you say, well, what's something you want kids to do as they're learning that? And I say, well, I want them to have a discussion, but I don't really know how I'm going to do that from a distance. What are you going to say?
So knowing that, I'm going to assume that you are a Google district. So I would say there's two ways that you can get started. One simple way, using text, you could use the Google Classroom question function, which allows you to have the kids to have threaded discussion. That's one way to do it. Another way, a real simple way, would be to use Flipgrid. If you want to have kids responding to each other verbally, that's one way. A third way, if you're a student, depending on the age and ability of your students, you could do breakout rooms in Zoom.
Right. So what the difference here is that Adam knew that I'm a hesitant teacher. He knew that he needed to come to me and ask me what my learning goal was, and then ask me, what is it you want to do with your kids? Focus on those 4 C's and the creativity, communication, collaboration, critical thinking. When he asked me, how do you want them to communicate? I said, I want them to have a discussion. And then he came in with that choice. So just be aware that having those conversations really does guide this. Some teachers will run with these choices. Yeah. Others will be overwhelmed.
Yeah, so I gave her 3 options. I could have given her about a dozen. But if I give anybody a dozen, that's going to scare them. And the hesitant teacher is not going to know what to do. So you want to limit. I would say obviously 1, but no more than 3 with a hesitant teacher. And because 3 doesn't seem too daunting, and it definitely is something that's gonna help you out.
Absolutely. So again, we kind of touched upon this already, but we serve all teachers, not just the innovators. And now that we're at a distance, we also serve other stakeholders. We serve parents, we serve administrators, we serve office staff. We are inclusive for all. And so you see on the right there, taken from the Matrix, all the multiple screens. And I'm sure you've seen on social media or perhaps your own office, whether at home or in your classroom. If you're teaching from a distance or coaching from a distance, many teachers have a whole bunch of screens like this. That might be a little much, but you get the idea. We serve those teachers, those individuals. We also serve on the left there, you'll see our school principals, our office staff, our parents, our other caregivers, perhaps grandparents who are watching their students, their grandchildren at home. We serve all of them. What are some ways you've done that, Adam?
So in the last, say, trying to do the math here, would be 9 months. I have served people in all these categories, and I can tell you stories about each and every one. So let's start with the innovators there on the top right there, because their workstation looks like as if they're in the Matrix. I have plenty of those. Those are the kind of teachers that I said, all right, you know what, you you are not afraid to take a risk. So these are the ones I pushed to become Google certified level 2. I said, hey, you know what, we're going to be using Screencastify a lot. They have 2 certifications that you can do. I pushed them in that direction. Because I know they're not afraid of the technology. They don't need me to hold their hand. So I push them to things that will be more advanced, really to go get those certifications as classroom teachers with the principals.
So let me just stop you there for a moment there, Adam. So you're saying that those innovators that are doing really well, you still coach them even though they've got it.
That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely. We want everyone to improve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The innovators, those are the ones that don't require the hand holding, and really they're the ones that end up coming to you. Well, once you just kind of build that baseline relationship, they're the ones who run to your room excited to show off what new trick they just learned, what new certification they just earned. With principals, I just this week worked with our principal and admin team, who they've been doing this thing by every Tuesday and Thursday, a 30-minute Zoom every morning that's optional for teachers, where teachers can ask the admin. It's an open forum.
Smart.
And they're just kind of giving heads up on what's coming up. It's been a great communication tool. And a lot of teachers, don't show up to that because they're busy grading papers and stuff. They show up when they can, and they feel like they're missing out on things. Mm-hmm. So I said, you know what, let's go ahead and record it. And what we're going to do, I told the principal, here's what you got to do. We're going to create a blogger site, and you're going to embed the recording and then a bulleted list of everything that was discussed on that forum, and then it becomes a running record. So if a teacher said, "Oh, 2 weeks ago, well, what did we talk about? What was that thing that I missed?" They can go back to the blogger site, watch the video, see the written summary of it, and the principal's just loving it now.
Absolutely.
I've worked with. There at the bottom left, you see teachers who look like grandma down there who still struggle to just turn their computer on. Those are the teachers I probably spent the most time with. And what's was really satisfying in coaching here at a distance was that they had no choice. They felt they had to do this because that was the only way they were going to be able to connect with kids at a distance. They had to learn, and that fear that we used to see, it just wasn't there anymore. But you start slow with them. You give them one thing at a time, build up their confidence. And, those are the coaching wins when you hear them saying, hey, I tried something out that you didn't teach me, but I figured it out. And those are the stories that that really fill your coaching heart. I've dealt with parents and teaching parents how to be added as guardians in Google Classroom to get those weekly updates from their kids. Something that simple is one way you may interact with the parent. Our office staff is probably more on the front lines than ever before, especially with your attendance clerk. And teaching them, our attendance has now gone fully digital. We don't have to print out our attendance anymore and sign it. Our attendance clerk's like, hey, can we do this digital? Can you show me? So I taught the attendance clerk how to set up a Google Classroom. And every teacher had to be a student in it. And every week she put an assignment of you to upload a PDF of your attendance that's signed digitally. And now she's like, man, I just been here hours trying to organize stuff, and now I'm done in minutes. So those are just a few examples of how as an EdTech coach, you're not just with those teachers delivering PD. You're not a PD delivery system.
Well, and also what we've noticed with distance learning is the need to coach these additional stakeholders has risen. And so we've been called upon, and I would imagine you have been as well, to really increase that coaching to all of those stakeholders. Another group that we didn't mention right now, but I'd like to point out, is students themselves. And so when you have teachers that feel comfortable with you joining their classroom, I had some classrooms that I was able to join and model some lessons so that they could see how it worked. And what was great was, here I am teaching the students how to do something that the teacher doesn't feel comfortable teaching the students themselves. And so what happens is, now that I leave, the teachers feel like, I think I can do this again because the students get it. Essentially, the EdTech coach coached the students in a Zoom call. Another way to do this is having student tutorials. Making a lot of student tutorials can be helpful for parents as well. And I've learned, start basic. Honestly, show kids how to minimize their screen. Show them what does it mean when I right click on a Chromebook on the trackpad.
Show them how to compose an email. That's been,
yes.
That video I made of that has been in high demand.
Yeah. So the idea is essentially anyone that here's what is great is that your coaching of one person is going to be exponential. Meaning, I have when I have office hours, I have a group of teachers that individually will drop in every single time. Now, not everyone does. There's some I've never seen, but guess what? Those teachers tell their team. And so in this distance environment, because it's difficult to be everywhere, to walk into those classrooms, remind those teachers that do come to you that you are so excited to hear what their team thinks about what you're learning. And that really does spread that knowledge. So what about some tips and tricks, some specific tips and tricks? I do want to mention, you'll see the picture there on the right. I am at the kitchen table doing some work. Adam's computer is on the other side, and he was doing some coaching as well, off and on. And then our daughter there was in distance learning as well. And so what's interesting is it's nice to not only have that perspective, but you'll see just below that there's a picture that she drew, and I needed to teach some teachers how to use Jamboard with young kids on an iPad. So I pulled out the iPad and I said, Andrina, will you do this with me? And so now I have a real life example to actually show the teachers. This is what an actual first grader can do. This is the trouble she had. This is how to make it easier. Here's some screenshots. So having that experience is extremely, extremely helpful.
And we talk about in our book, section we said that you need to have an EdTech coaching vehicle, which is kind of like a place where you kind of curate student work that's done as a result of your coaching. And those are the things, the student work, that's the evidence, that's the proof in the pudding that you can show other teachers who may be hesitant, teachers who aren't quite on board yet. We say, hey, here's what kids can do when you implement EdTech in an organic manner.
So that EdTech coaching vehicle, like Adam is saying, it's a place that showcases and try to showcase students, not teachers.
That's right.
Teachers will be a lot more willing to come to you if they feel their effective filter will be lowered if you focus on student work. Very, very helpful. The other thing that can be really helpful, especially in distance learning, have some templates ready. This is brand new. So for example, you'll see the picture there of some Google Slides. It says grade 3 narrative writing. This is a template that they can take and put any topic in. I created others for other content areas and other topics. And essentially, I can now as a teacher take this and make it my own. I can remix it, but I have to know what it looks like from a distance first before I even know what to do. So it can be very helpful to give them some support that way also.
As an EdTech coach, distance learning, it's not it should not be a part of your coaching too much before COVID. But since COVID, you are a help desk.
Yes.
And that's not the most organic thing when teaching and learning is normal. But in a COVID world, you're gonna have to be that help desk because people they're gonna push that panic button, that help button, and they need to know that someone is there. So that right there cannot be understated. And probably the first 3 months of this fall semester, I did more help desk work than I've ever done in my life. But that's what was needed.
And it built those relationships.
Right.
It built the trust. You were there for them. You didn't say, "Well, that's not my job." It's not. But our job is to serve teachers, to serve learners, and so that's what was needed, like you said.
I mean, we are a week away from the end of the semester, and my help desk is open. But it's the traffic is very, very light these days. This time because they feel like, okay, I've got this now. They feel comfortable with it. They're not coming to me every 5 minutes with some panicking about something that they're trying to do. As we talked about earlier, record yourself, respond with a screencast. In the EdTech Coaching vehicle, you may have a page where you curate all your how-to videos and tutorials. It's such a simple concept, but it goes a really long way. As far as modeling is a great thing to do as a teacher. In the classes that I teach, I add myself as a student in Google Classroom. So if your domain district allows you to add personal Gmail accounts, then add yourself as a student to all your classes, because before you're going to have a student, have your students do an assignment, every time I share my screen from this, I want them to see the student perspective. The teacher perspective in Google Classroom and in other platforms does look markedly different than the student view. So I always add my personal account to Google Classroom, and I can right there live on Zoom or Google Meet, and I can demonstrate exactly what I want them to do from the student perspective. Something that simple is a tip that has gone really far with all those teachers.
One more tip that is huge. When you are an ed tech coach, or if you are a content coach and you're trying to have your teachers integrate tech and you are feeling like you can't keep up, it's because you can't. Mm-hmm. Technology innovates so quickly. The apps are updating constantly. And so to keep up is very difficult. And so the way to keep up with that is to rely on others. It really is. There are Facebook groups for Google Classroom users. There are Facebook groups for Seesaw users, for instructional coaches, for EdTech coaches. Facebook is a great place to get questions answered and learn. I learn a lot on there. Twitter is another amazing place. You can go to #EdTech and find a whole bunch of stuff, to be honest. Definitely follow us on Twitter. We'll follow you back. And, we only those are largely education accounts. I don't, put a picture of what I ate. So, it will all be every once in a while, not very often. So, definitely, do that at whatever social media platform you're using. Reach out.
Please go ahead and do not be afraid to ever, ask for help. If we don't know the answer, I guarantee you we know someone who does.
Yes.
So that's the beauty of the EdTech community. We're very giving. We started off in this business a few years ago, like 5 followers on Twitter. We don't know what we're doing. And we were able to reach out to the titans of our industry, people with tens of thousands of followers on Twitter who are like edu celebrities. And we reached out to them, direct messaged them, and they responded. The EdTech community is not this exclusive company. It's no matter who you are, how long you've been doing the job, whatever your status is, people are giving. And you know what, I like to say we stand on the shoulders of giants. So with all that we've accomplished as EdTech coaches, in the EdTech world, everyone's paying it forward.
Well, we want to definitely make sure that you have access to our resources. A PDF of this slide deck will be there, as well as a PDF with some questions, some reflection questions that you can ask, as well as a 4Cs lesson design template and some other items that are in the book. So definitely check that out, organicedtech.com, where you will find, again, these slides, as well as many other resources as well. So with that, we want to not say goodbye, but say until we meet again, because we are here and we love to connect. Just as Adam said, reach out at any time and we will definitely connect with you.
All right, you guys have a good one, and hopefully we'll see you there on social media.